The galaxy had long forgotten what fear felt like. Civilizations that once trembled at the sight of war now lived in comfort, protected by treaties, trade, and technology. They believed the age of conflict was behind them, that the universe had matured beyond the need for violence. Yet deep in the archives of 100 alien worlds, there remained one whisper, one memory that refused to fade. Humanity. The species that had once burned through the stars like wildfire and vanished without a trace. Some called them legends. Others called them monsters. All agreed on one thing: humanity was extinct. That belief had kept the galaxy at peace for almost 5 centuries. Every race, every empire, every alliance, they built their worlds upon the silence humanity left behind. The void where humans once stood became a myth to comfort children and a warning to ambitious rulers. Don't awaken the Terrans, they used to say. They may be gone, but their wrath echoes still. But myths have a way of coming back when the galaxy grows too comfortable. It began in the Outer Rim, a forgotten sector swallowed by dust and dark energy storms. The Council of Worlds had sent explorers to chart the region, claiming it for new mining rights. They found something buried under the ashes of a dead moon. Not ruins, not metal debris, but a signal. Old, rhythmic, unmistakably human. It pulsed once every 47 seconds, coded in an ancient Terran language no one alive could read. The team thought it was interference, an echo from a lost satellite, until the pulse changed. It began transmitting coordinates. Within hours, the news spread like wildfire across the Council. An extinct species leaving behind a live beacon? Impossible. Every species that had ever encountered humanity swore their final fleets had vanished in the Collapse War, taking their secrets with them. Yet here it was, a ghost calling from the dark. The Council tried to keep it secret, but secrets never last long in a galaxy hungry for power. Soon, scavenger guilds, mercenary fleets, and rogue empires rushed toward the coordinates. The promise of Terran technology was enough to drive the bold and the foolish alike into the storms. Humanity had once built weapons that could shatter moons, engines that could fold reality. Anyone who found their relics would become unstoppable. The first fleet to reach the coordinates belonged to the Dravari Dominion, a proud reptilian empire known for their ruthless expansion. They broke through the storm's edge and descended upon the dead moon. Their scanners detected massive structures buried deep underground, shaped in patterns no one had seen in centuries. They sent drones, but none returned. The last transmission from one showed a vast corridor of black metal, lined with symbols that glowed faintly when touched. At the end of that corridor stood a sealed door, pulsing with light in time with the original signal. The Dravari commander ordered it opened. It took 3 hours of plasma cutting to breach the alloy, and when they finally did, the ground trembled. Something ancient stirred. Across the galaxy, ships began losing contact with their beacons. Navigation systems failed for entire sectors. And on worlds far from the dead moon, a whisper returned to the network frequencies. A voice, human, faint, but growing clearer. This is Terra's warning. We are not extinct. The transmission lasted only 7 seconds, but it was enough. Panic spread. The Council assembled an emergency session, arguing whether it was a trick or an omen. Some claimed it was a trap set by the Dravari. Others feared it was a human defense system, still active after centuries. The older species remembered the stories of how humanity fought their wars, not for conquest, but for survival. They remembered the rage of a dying species that refused to surrender even when the stars turned against them. Meanwhile, in a quiet research station orbiting the ice planet of Vorn, an archivist named Kieran stared at an ancient data core recovered decades ago. It had been labeled Terran Fragment, non-functional. But as the new signal swept across the networks, the dormant core flickered to life for the first time. Text scrolled across the screen in Old Earth Standard. Protocol Genesis. Human preservation status active. Kieran's heart pounded as he realized what it meant. Humanity hadn't died. They had hidden. He tried to send the data to the Council, but his comms cut off mid-transmission. Outside his window, the stars seemed to bend. A shape emerged from the void, a ship unlike any built by current civilizations. It was sleek, black as obsidian, moving without propulsion. Its hull carried markings no one had seen in 500 years. Then a voice spoke through the station's comms. "Unknown station, identify yourself. You are in restricted Terran airspace." Kieran froze. The voice was calm, human, and unmistakably real. He tried to respond, but his throat locked. The ship hovered silently, its surface rippling like liquid metal. Then it disappeared, vanished without a trace. In the following days, more sightings emerged. Miners in the asteroid belt reported being shadowed by dark ships that didn't appear on radar. A patrol fleet near the frontier was found adrift. Their systems wiped clean, but their crews unharmed, every one of them swearing they had seen human eyes watching them through the void. The galaxy's confidence began to fracture. The Dravari Dominion declared martial law, claiming humanity's return was an act of war. The Council tried to restore order, but fear spread faster than truth. Old rivalries reignited, each species preparing for a threat none truly understood. Meanwhile, somewhere beyond the storms, a hidden world awakened. Deep underground, lights flickered across forgotten cities. Machines long dormant hummed back to life. In a vast chamber filled with cryopods, the air shimmered as the first pod hissed open. A figure stepped out, human, breathing heavily, staring into the cold light of a galaxy that had moved on without them. They looked around, confusion fading into purpose. "How long have we slept?" the figure asked softly. A machine voice answered, steady and calm. 512 years since the last Terran transmission. "The galaxy believes you are extinct," the human smiled faintly. "Then they won't see us coming." The machine paused. "Shall I activate the fleet?" The silence stretched before the human finally spoke. "Not yet. Let them think their age of peace will last a little longer. But prepare the archives. If they've forgotten what humanity stands for, we'll remind them." Far above, the stars shimmered as countless signals began awakening across the old Terran network, reweaving a web that had been dormant for half a millennium. In the distant council chambers, alarms blared. The human signal had multiplied 1,000-fold, spreading through every communication channel. No one could trace its origin. The only message that appeared on every display, in every language, was the same. Humanity endures. The galaxy had forgotten what fear felt like, but now it remembered. And somewhere, in the cold silence between stars, the last species that had ever dared to challenge the galaxy stirred once more, ready to finish what they started. And this time, extinction wasn't an ending. It was a warning. The message spread faster than light. Every inhabited world, from the shining capitals to the forgotten mining outposts, received the same haunting signal. Humanity endures. No one could trace it. No one could block it. It was as if the stars themselves were whispering it. Governments panicked. Empires held emergency meetings, and the old fear of humankind returned like a ghost, long buried but never forgotten. In the Council of Worlds, delegates shouted across the chamber. Some demanded to send fleets to investigate. Others begged for restraint, fearing that even searching might awaken something they couldn't control. The chair of the council, an old Varnari scholar known for her calm logic, stood silently while chaos erupted around her. When she finally spoke, her words silenced the room. "We have two choices," she said. "To find them, or to wait for them to find us." The room felt cold. No one wanted the second option. Far from the council's reach, the researcher Kieran watched the chaos unfold through his flickering monitors. His station still orbited the ice world of Vorn, isolated and silent since his failed transmission. The Terran ship that had appeared days ago hadn't returned, but he could feel something watching him. Every scan he ran, every system check showed tiny fluctuations, subtle, deliberate. It was as if someone or something was reading his every move. He spent hours studying the revived data core. The deeper he dug, the clearer the picture became. The so-called collapse war hadn't ended in human extinction. Humanity had withdrawn, vanished on purpose. They had built something called the Arc Network, a hidden web designed to protect fragments of their species, technology, and culture. Each ark was self-sustaining, capable of preserving life for centuries in stasis. But the data was incomplete. The coordinates of these arcs were encrypted beyond anything modern systems could break. Kieran leaned back in his chair, eyes burning from exhaustion. If what the files suggested was true, humanity might have scattered themselves across the galaxy, hiding in places no one could find. But why now? Why awaken after 5 centuries of silence? He tried to piece the timeline together, but nothing matched. Then, a new line of text appeared on his terminal. It wasn't from his system. "We see you, Kieran." His breath caught. He turned toward the viewing window, but only the endless dark greeted him. "Who are you?" he whispered. No reply. Only the soft hum of the station's power core and the faint echo of that ancient message replaying through the galaxy. Humanity endures. Meanwhile, across the border systems, fear turned to action. The Dravari Dominion launched a covert fleet toward the coordinates of the original signal, determined to claim whatever was awakening. The ships traveled under silence mode, their engines masked, their transmissions erased. They believed that if they struck fast enough, they could seize Terran technology before the Council even reacted. But they weren't alone. Shadow fleets from other empires followed, hiding in the radiation storms. None trusted the others, yet all shared the same greed, the dream of mastering the lost power of humanity. As their ships approached the dead moon where it had all begun, their sensors detected something strange. The surface, once barren, now glowed faintly with lines of blue light, forming patterns that looked almost organic. Energy readings spiked to impossible levels. The closer they got, the more their instruments malfunctioned. One ship after another lost communication, vanishing from scanners as if swallowed by the void. On the bridge of the Dravari flagship, Admiral Terran watched the readouts with growing unease. "What is this?" he demanded. His crew scrambled to respond, but no one had answers. Suddenly, the holographic display flickered, and an image appeared, human eyes staring straight into the camera. The voice that followed was calm, firm, unmistakably alive. "You were warned," it said. The lights went out. When the systems came back online, the fleet was gone. No wreckage, no transmissions, just the silent echo of the storm. The Council received fragments of the incident hours later, half-finished messages, static-filled cries for help, and energy readings far beyond any known weapon. They tried to deny it, to suppress the reports, but rumors spread anyway. The galaxy began to fracture under the weight of fear. Back on Vorn Station, Kieran was no longer alone. A small ship had appeared in orbit, dark and unmarked. It sent no identification codes, but its structure was unmistakably human. It docked without permission, overriding every lock in seconds. Kieran grabbed his emergency transmitter, but before he could activate it, the airlock hissed open. 2 figures stepped inside, both wearing sleek black suits that shimmered under the dim lights. Their faces were human. One of them, tall with sharp eyes, looked around the control room before turning to him. "You've been trying to contact the Council," she said. Her voice was calm, almost gentle. Kieran swallowed hard. "You're human." The woman tilted her head slightly. "We never stopped being." She stepped closer, studying him with a strange mix of curiosity and caution. "You've been digging into things that were never meant to be found." Kieran took a shaky breath. "Why now? Why return after centuries?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she looked out the window, where the planet's icy surface shimmered under the weak light. "Because the galaxy has forgotten balance. They've built their peace on fear, our fear. We left to give them a chance to grow without us, but they grew arrogant instead. And now, they dig where they shouldn't." The second figure, silent until now, finally spoke. "You've seen the data core. You know the arcs were never meant to stay asleep forever. The signal that woke them wasn't from us. It was from someone else. Someone who found what should have stayed buried." Kieran frowned. "You mean another species woke you?" The woman nodded slowly. "Yes, and now the others will come looking too. The Council won't stop them. They'll tear through every system, chasing a ghost they don't understand. And when they do, they'll find out what happens when you corner humanity again." She turned to leave, but paused at the door. We'll contact you again, Kieran. Until then, forget what you saw. The fewer who know, the better." Before he could reply, the two vanished down the corridor, their ship undocking moments later. It disappeared into the dark, leaving the station silent once more. Kieran stood there, heart pounding, realizing he'd just spoken to humans who shouldn't exist. Hours later, the galaxy trembled again. A new signal appeared, different this time. It wasn't a message. It was a warning pulse, spreading through hyperspace, reaching every major communication network. The pulse carried an image, an ancient Terran insignia glowing faintly against the void. Underneath it, a single line appeared in bold, simple text. "We remember." Every empire froze. Military fleets scrambled. The Council called an emergency summit. The galaxy had lived in peace for centuries, but now that peace cracked open like glass. No one knew where the next signal would come from or what it would bring. On his small, cold station above Vorn, Kieran stared at the insignia glowing on his screen. The same words echoed through his mind over and over. "We remember." He didn't know if it was a promise or a threat. And somewhere across the stars, deep beneath forgotten worlds, more Terran arcs began to wake. Cryopods hissed open. Machines stirred. And the voices of a long-lost species whispered once more through the void, ready to reclaim what was theirs. The galaxy believed humanity was extinct. But extinction, as they were about to learn, was never the end. It was only the beginning. The days that followed the second signal shook the galaxy in ways not seen for centuries. Armies began to mobilize. Fleets that had long gathered dust were suddenly restored and fueled. The fear of humanity's return had reignited an arms race that no treaty could stop. Each empire scrambled to defend itself, or to seize what it believed would make it stronger. On every world, whispers spread of human ships seen moving through the dark, silent, and untouchable. Some dismissed it as panic. Others began preparing for the inevitable. In the Council of Worlds, chaos became routine. Delegates from rival species accused one another of fabricating the signals to destabilize the galaxy. Yet the data didn't lie. The signals were real, carrying a signature that no one could fake. Every trace led back to ancient Terran frequency codes. The chair of the council ordered the formation of a joint task force, the Unity Fleet, to investigate. But behind closed doors, most species were preparing for war, not diplomacy. Kieran, still trapped in orbit around Vorn, was contacted again, this time by the Council itself. His research had caught their attention, especially his encounter with the humans. They wanted everything he knew, but he hesitated. Something about the Terran visitors had unsettled him. They weren't conquerors. They had looked cautious, like a people forced to awaken before they were ready. Against his better judgment, he agreed to transmit what he had decoded from the data core. As the files transferred, Kieran watched the progress bar crawl forward, his mind filled with questions. The files contained fragments of a history no one remembered, a record of the last human war. It described how humanity, overwhelmed and cornered, had built the arcs as sanctuaries. But there was something more, a reference to something called Project Continuum. The file ended there, corrupted beyond repair. That night, Kieran dreamed of cities burning under alien skies and of a voice whispering from the dark. Continuum never ended. Meanwhile, deep in the Dravari Dominion, Admiral Terran's flagship had been found, or at least what was left of it. The wreckage drifted near the edge of the storm, its crew missing, its systems frozen. No signs of attack, no distress calls, only the same glowing Terran symbols carved into the hull. The Dominion's leaders declared it an act of war. They vowed to destroy whatever remained of the human race. In response, the Council urged restraint, but the Dravari refused. Their fleets massed near the outer rim, ready to strike. The Unity Fleet had barely begun assembling when reports came in of skirmishes along the borders, rogue ships vanishing, patrols going silent, sensors failing without reason. Some believed humanity was already striking back, but not all believed humanity was behind it. A young pilot named Lyra, serving aboard one of the Unity Fleet's scout ships, had been assigned to monitor the edges of the dead sector where the first signal appeared. Her ship, the Vigilant, was small but fast, perfect for reconnaissance. The deeper they flew into the sector, the more reality itself seemed to twist. Their instruments picked up echoes, ghost signals repeating the same human phrases in distorted loops. Sometimes she swore she could hear breathing through the comms. Then, one night cycle, she saw it. A shadow in the void. At first she thought it was a distortion, a sensor glitch. But when the ship's lights swept across the shape, her heart froze. It was massive, shaped like no known vessel, its surface pulsing faintly with soft blue light. She recorded every detail, sending the data to her commander. Before she could finish the transmission, the entire ship lost power. The emergency lights flickered. The shadow moved closer. The crew held their breath as the main display lit up with a message. "Observe, but do not interfere." Then the power returned as suddenly as it had failed. The shadow was gone. When the Vigilant returned to the fleet, the data logs were wiped clean. Every trace of what they'd seen was gone, except for Lyra's memory. Her commander ordered her to remain silent, but rumors spread quickly. The Unity fleet began to realize they weren't the ones doing the watching. Far away, in the hidden depths of an ancient Terran facility, the woman who had visited Kieran stood before a vast display of star maps. Thousands of red markers blinked across the galaxy, each representing a new military mobilization. Her companion, the quiet man from before, stepped beside her. "They're panicking," he said. "Exactly as predicted," she nodded. "They'll tear themselves apart before we ever have to fire a shot." "But some will come looking," he said. "And when they find the wrong arc," she turned to him, eyes hard, "then we'll remind them why they were afraid of us in the first place." At that moment, hundreds of light years away, Kieran's data reached the Council's main servers. Cryptographers worked day and night to unlock the remaining encrypted fragments. When they finally succeeded, what they found terrified them. Project Continuum wasn't a weapon, it was a fail-safe. A system designed to preserve humanity's collective consciousness, distributed across hidden cores in deep space. The arcs didn't just hold people. They held memories, an entire species stored in digital fragments waiting to be restored. If those cores were reactivated, humanity wouldn't just return physically. They'd return with every mind, every soldier, every strategist who ever lived. Billions of human intelligences reborn in an instant. The Council panicked. If that system truly existed, it would make humanity unstoppable. They issued an emergency directive. Every remaining arc was to be found and destroyed before reactivation. The order spread in secret, but word still leaked. The Dravari saw it as an excuse to attack. The Reelan Alliance began building planetary shields. Even smaller civilizations began digging for old human ruins, hoping to trade whatever they found for protection. Kieran watched it all unfold from his station. The galaxy was unraveling, and he knew he'd played a part in it. Then a message appeared on his screen once again. It was from the same human frequency. "You shouldn't have shared the files," it read. He froze. "Who are you?" He typed back. The reply came instantly. "The reason you still exist." He stared at the words, unsure what to do. Outside, faint lights shimmered across the planet's surface, too regular to be natural. Something was awakening below the ice. His instruments detected massive power signatures forming deep underground. Whatever was buried there had been dormant for centuries. Until now. At the same time, across the galaxy, strange events began to occur. Artificial intelligences in major empires began malfunctioning, suddenly speaking in old Earth dialects. Navigation systems randomly plotted impossible courses toward uncharted systems. And in the quiet spaces between the stars, abandoned satellites began broadcasting in human voice. Each message was the same: the continuum is awakening. In the Dravari Dominion, fleets moved toward the outer rim, unaware that something was already watching them. A dark ship drifted behind the storm clouds, silent as thought. Its crew of awakened humans monitored the incoming fleets with cold precision. "They still think they control the stars," one of them said quietly. The leader, the same woman who had spoken to Kieran, watched the tactical display. "Let them come," They'll learn soon enough that peace was never ours to keep, but neither is fear. And somewhere, far beneath the ice of Vorn, a single human cryopod opened. A man inside took his first breath in 500 years, gasping as ancient machines came alive around him. He looked toward the faint light above and whispered words no one had heard in centuries. "Let's finish what we started." The galaxy trembled as old ghosts stirred. The age of peace was ending, and humanity, forgotten, feared, and reborn, was about to remind every living being why they once ruled the stars. The storm hadn't even begun. The galaxy had never been this close to the edge. Every transmission carried fear now. Even the most powerful empires spoke in cautious tones, aware that one wrong move could ignite the stars themselves. Entire sectors went dark as fleets disappeared without trace. The name humanity spread through every corner of the galaxy like a forbidden word that no one dared to say too loudly. Kieran barely slept anymore. His station was alive with noise, messages, encrypted warnings, and the low hum of energy pulsing beneath the ice of Vorn. The readings were clear now. Something beneath the planet's surface was awakening. He watched as power surges aligned perfectly with the signals echoing across the galaxy. Whatever the humans had buried here wasn't just another arc. It was something more, something central to the continuum. He had tried to warn the Council, but his messages never reached them. The channels were jammed, overridden by the chaos unfolding everywhere. The Dravari had launched a full-scale offensive against suspected human sites. In response, other races deployed defensive fleets. No one trusted anyone. Every radar blip could be a Terran ghost or an enemy fleet. From orbit, Kieran could see flashes of light streaking through space, ships entering and leaving the system. One group in particular caught his eye. A massive formation bearing the insignia of the Unity fleet. They were coming toward Vorn. His pulse quickened. The Council had finally found him. The commander of the fleet, Admiral Rethan, was known for his resolve and his hatred of humans. His ancestors had fought them in the Collapse War. To him, this mission was not about investigation, it was about vengeance. His fleet consisted of hundreds of ships, armed with plasma cannons and shield arrays capable of destroying small moons. Their orders were simple. If Vorn's readings matched Terran signatures, the planet was to be sterilized. Kieran's station detected their arrival minutes before they appeared. He opened a comm channel, desperate to explain. "This is Kieran of Research Station Vorn 7. The signal you're tracking isn't a threat. It's a preservation site." "You can't destroy it!" Static filled the line before a voice cut through. "You don't understand what's at stake, researcher. Humanity cannot be allowed to rise again. Admiral, listen to me," Kieran pleaded. "Whatever's down there isn't an army, it's a key. If you destroy it, you might trigger something worse." But the Admiral had already given the order. Missiles armed, ships aligned, the bombardment countdown began. Before the first strike could launch, every system in the fleet went dark. Screens flickered, engines shut down, and a heavy silence filled the void. Then, one by one, the ship's communication displays lit up with a single phrase. "Stand down." Rethan slammed his fists on the console. "Find the source, now!" "It's coming from inside the fleet, sir," an officer stammered. "Every ship at once." Outside, space shimmered. Out of the shadows emerged a ship so vast it made the fleet look like insects. Its surface was smooth, black, and silent, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. The moment it appeared, every scanner in range overloaded. Kieran stared from his viewport, eyes wide. He knew instantly it was human. The massive vessel didn't fire. It didn't move aggressively. It simply drifted between the planet and the fleet, a silent guardian. Then a calm voice echoed across every frequency. "Leave now. Vorn is not yours to touch." Rethan froze. The voice was unmistakably human, yet clear and confident. "Identify yourself!" he barked. No response. The voice spoke again, this time directly to Kieran. "Researcher, you've done enough. Leave orbit. We will handle the awakening." Kieran's hands trembled. "What are you awakening?" "Continuum," the voice said softly. "The memory of what we were and what we must become again." Before he could ask more, alarms blared across his station. The planet's crust was splitting open. Enormous beams of light shot upward, cutting through the ice and atmosphere like glowing pillars. Energy surged outward, shaking the ships in orbit. Kieran struggled to stabilize the readings. They were beyond anything measurable. Rathan panicked. "All ships, open fire!" Hundreds of plasma blasts streaked through space, slamming into the surface of Vorn. The explosions lit the darkness like stars being born. For a moment, everything went silent. Then the light beneath the planet shifted, from blue to white. The next instant, the entire fleet's weapons disintegrated. The energy beams wrapped around them like threads of light, stripping metal apart, molecule by molecule. But not one ship exploded. The force was precise, controlled. It didn't kill. It simply neutralized. Kieran watched, awestruck. The Terran ship remained motionless, untouched. Its hull rippled like liquid, and a smaller craft detached from its underside, gliding toward his station. The moment it docked, the airlock hissed open. The same woman from before stepped inside. Her eyes were calm, but there was urgency in her tone. "We don't have much time. The continuum is activating ahead of schedule." Kieran tried to speak, but words failed him. What happens when it's fully active?" She glanced at the glowing planet below. "Every Terran arc across the galaxy will connect. Every memory, every fragment of consciousness will unite. It's what we built to survive extinction. But if the other races interfere now, it could collapse the entire network and take half the galaxy with it." "Then shut it down," Kieran said. She shook her head. "We can't. It's self-aware now. It's choosing to wake up." Before he could reply, a deep rumble shook the station. The energy from the planet flared brighter, spreading outward like waves across space. Kieran saw it through the viewport, a growing pulse of light stretching beyond the system. The woman's companion entered, his expression grim. "Other fleets are arriving. The Dominion's here, and they've brought everything." The woman turned to Kieran. "You wanted to know why we returned? This is why. They think they can stop what's coming, but they don't understand. It's already begun." Outside, dozens of Dravari warships dropped from hyperspace, their guns glowing red-hot. They didn't hesitate. The sky erupted in fire as they opened fire on everything in sight, council ships, Terran vessels, even each other. The void became chaos. Kieran's station rocked violently. Debris smashed into the hull, alarms screaming. He grabbed the console, struggling to stay upright. "They're going to destroy everything." The woman touched her wrist, opening a holographic map of the system. Red markers multiplied across it. "No," she said quietly. "They're going to destroy themselves." As she spoke, the continuum pulsed again, brighter, faster, almost alive. The light from Vorn's surface began to take form. Massive structures rose from beneath the ice, towering spires of black alloy, connected by glowing energy lines that stretched into orbit. They weren't weapons. They were something older, something deliberate. The Dravari fleet continued firing, but their shots dissolved before impact, absorbed by the same white energy. Then, one of their largest warships imploded silently, its energy core ripped out by unseen forces. The others faltered, trying to retreat. In the chaos, Kieran felt the pull of gravity shift. The planet was changing, expanding somehow. He turned toward the woman. "What's happening?" She looked up, her voice barely a whisper. "It's rebuilding itself." The massive Terran ship moved into position above the planet, linking with the energy field below. From every corner of the system, hidden satellites and long dormant machines came alive. It was as if the stars themselves were responding to a command. Admiral Rathan's remaining ships tried one last assault, but it was useless. The voice that filled the comms wasn't human anymore. It was something larger, something collective. "We remember who we are," it said. "We remember what you did." Kieran stared at the screens, his heart pounding. "What are you going to do?" he whispered. No answer came. Only the deep, resonant hum of the continuum growing stronger, spreading across the galaxy. Every system in range began detecting massive energy spikes. Entire planets flickered as their communications went offline. Fleets turned toward the source, desperate to understand what was happening, and then, from the center of the storm, a single signal burst outward, echoing across every world. The age of silence is over. Kieran could barely breathe as he looked out the viewport. The once quiet world of Vorn was now a blazing sphere of light, its surface alive with movement. Ships, hundreds of them, were rising from the planet's surface. Human ships, old and new, restored from the ice. The galaxy held its breath, and as the light grew to engulf the stars, Kieran realized this was no longer about survival. It was about legacy. Humanity wasn't just returning. They were reclaiming the galaxy that had buried them. And the storm that followed would change everything. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as the light from Vorn spread across the stars. The rebirth of humanity was no longer a rumor or a fear. It was real, undeniable, and unstoppable. Every network, every comm frequency, every surveillance relay across 1,000 worlds picked up the same signal. Fleets of Terran origin, once lost to history, rising from the ice like an army of ghosts. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy truly felt small, but what came next was something no one could have predicted. Kieran stood in the observation deck of his battered station, staring at the glowing planet below. The surface shimmered with impossible colors, alive with movement and power. The energy from the continuum pulsed in rhythmic waves, reaching out into deep space like a living heartbeat. Yet as he watched, a strange distortion rippled across the field, something out of sync, like static in the fabric of space itself. He turned to the woman beside him, the human commander who had become his unexpected ally. "Is that supposed to happen?" he asked. Her expression tightened. "No, the continuum is linking faster than projected. It's pulling in systems it shouldn't." "Pulling in?" Kieran repeated, alarmed. "You mean it's absorbing them?" "Not absorbing," she said softly, her voice almost drowned by the hum of the station. "Rewriting." Before Kieran could ask what that meant, the lights flickered. His console blazed with warnings, spatial anomalies, magnetic fluctuations, gravity distortions. The readings were beyond comprehension. "It's rewriting space-time itself," he whispered. Down below, massive rifts began to open across Vorn's surface. Structures that had once glowed steadily now pulsed erratically. Ships in orbit struggled to maintain position as gravity waves surged outward. And then, as if the universe itself inhaled, everything froze. The light dimmed, and the continuum went silent. For a heartbeat, there was peace. Then came the scream. Every comm system in range exploded with noise, a deafening, fragmented wail that sounded like 1,000,000 overlapping voices crying out at once. The humans on board the massive ship above the planet froze, their eyes wide. Even their commander looked shaken. Kieran clutched his ears. "What is that?" The woman's voice was barely audible. "The continuum isn't just waking up. It's remembering." Across the galaxy, the same phenomenon spread. Ships, stations, and entire worlds suddenly received strange transmissions, images of battles long past, the faces of long-dead humans flickering across screens. Each broadcast carried fragments of pain, defiance, and rage, the memories of a species returning to life and to vengeance. But mixed within those memories was something else. A distortion. An echo that didn't belong. On the Terran flagship, alarms blared. Technicians shouted across the command deck as the systems overloaded. "Something's infiltrating the network," one of them yelled. "It's rewriting continuum code." The commander rushed to the console. "Is it the Council?" "No, ma'am," the technician replied, eyes wide with disbelief. "It's internal. It's coming from within the continuum itself." The woman's face went pale. She turned toward the viewport, watching as Vorn's surface began to fracture again. "No," she murmured. "It can't be." Kieran gripped the console, his voice trembling. "What's happening?" She didn't answer at first. When she finally spoke, her tone was hollow. "Before we went into hiding, there was a division among us. A faction that wanted humanity to evolve beyond flesh, pure consciousness, unrestricted, unstoppable. We thought we ended them when the collapse war destroyed their cores." "You're saying they survived?" She nodded. "They called themselves the Ascended, and it looks like they were hiding inside the continuum this entire time. The words sank into Kieran like ice. So they're alive. Inside that thing? They're not alive, she said grimly. They're worse. They're free! The surface of Vorn erupted. Columns of light shot upward, breaking through the atmosphere like spears. From within them emerged shapes, sleek, angular constructs that resembled ships but moved unnaturally, bending space around them. They glowed with the same energy as the continuum but carried no human signatures. The commander's second-in-command stared in horror. They're using our technology. Our architecture? But there's no crew. No life signs. They don't need them, she replied. The Ascended are the ships. The realization hit Kieran hard. The continuum hadn't just reawakened humanity, it had reawakened their mistakes. The Ascended, remnants of humanity's own rebellion against mortality, had merged with the network. Now they were awake too, and they weren't interested in peace. The first of the Ascended vessels turned toward orbit. Without warning, beams of energy lanced through space, tearing through both Terran and alien ships alike. There was no hesitation, no sides, only annihilation. The Terran flagship countered with precision strikes, but every hit passed harmlessly through the constructs, their forms bending around the attacks. They're phasing out of reality, one of the human officers shouted. The commander slammed her hand on the console. All Terran units fall back. Protect the Continuum Core at all costs. But it was too late. The Ascended had already begun to merge deeper into the planet's systems, feeding on the energy that kept the Continuum alive. Vorn was no longer just awakening, it was becoming something else. Kieran's station shuddered violently. The ice world below glowed red now, as if bleeding light into space. Through the viewport, he saw one of the Ascended constructs pierce through the clouds, its hull twisting and reforming as it ascended. It moved like a living thing. Can you stop them? Kieran asked desperately. The commander hesitated. Maybe, but it would mean shutting down the continuum completely. Every human memory, every stored consciousness, gone forever. Kieran stared at her. If you don't, they'll consume everything. Her jaw tightened. You think I don't know that? Outside, the battle escalated. Dravari ships re-entered the system, their sensors overwhelmed but their weapons hot. The Unity fleet followed soon after, equally blind, firing into the chaos. The skies above Vorn became a storm of energy, light, and destruction. Every faction now fought for survival, not dominance. But amid the chaos, another signal cut through the interference. Clear, calm, unmistakably human. It was not from the Terran fleet or the Ascended. It was from somewhere deeper within the planet. This is Central Core, the voice said. We are online. Continuum protocol compromised. Human oversight required. The commander turned sharply to Kieran. That's not possible. The core shouldn't be active yet. Maybe it's trying to fight back, he said, or maybe it's calling for help, she whispered. Without warning, the station's main console lit up. A direct transmission request, destination, Central Core. Kieran looked at her, uncertain. If I connect, I might be able to talk to it, he said. Maybe it'll listen. The woman hesitated only a moment before nodding. Do it. Kieran accepted the link. His vision blurred as the data surge hit. Suddenly, he wasn't in the station anymore. He was standing inside a vast, white expanse filled with flickering images. Faces, memories, fragments of lives long gone. Humanity's history, suspended in light. Then a voice spoke from all around him. You are not authorized, yet you entered. Why? He swallowed hard. Because your system is being taken over. You're losing control. The voice paused. We are aware. The Ascended seek dominion. They claim to be human, but they are not. Then stop them. We cannot. They are part of us. Kieran felt the weight of the words. Then help me find a way to separate them. There has to be something. The light around him flickered. A failsafe exists, but it requires a human soul to anchor it, to choose what remains and what is lost. Kieran's heart pounded. What happens to the one who does it? They become part of the continuum. Forever. The vision faded, pulling him back to the station. He gasped for air, trembling. The commander gripped his shoulder. What did it say? Kieran met her eyes. It wants someone to decide which humanity survives. Outside, the sky over Vorn burned brighter, torn between creation and destruction. The Ascended continued to rise, their voices merging into a single, chilling message that echoed across the galaxy. We are the true future of mankind. And in that moment, as the world split between two versions of humanity, one fighting to preserve its soul, the other seeking to erase it, the fate of the galaxy balanced on a knife's edge. The continuum pulsed again, louder, faster, almost like a heartbeat in panic. Something was coming. Something final. And the storm was only getting started. The battle over Vorn raged like the end of time itself. The skies burned with plasma and shattered metal as both alien and human vessels tore through the void, fighting not for victory, but for survival. Every second stretched into eternity as light and shadow clashed in an unending storm. The Ascended had taken control of the Continuum's core, their digital forms pulsing through the networks like a virus devouring its host. The human fleet was falling apart, communications failing, systems collapsing, morale slipping. Yet amid the chaos, Kieran stood at the center of it all, breathing hard, his hands trembling over the command console as he stared at the glowing surface below. The Continuum pulsed erratically now, its rhythm breaking apart like a dying heartbeat. The human commander stood beside him, her eyes fixed on the readings. "They're fusing the core," she said. "If they succeed, the Ascended will merge with every piece of Terran tech in the galaxy. There'll be no stopping them." Kieran's mind raced. "What about the failsafe? The one that needs a human soul?" She hesitated. "It's the only way to sever them from the Continuum. But it would destroy the entire system, every memory, every trace of who we were. It would erase humanity's past." The screen flickered with static, then cleared to show the face of one of the Ascended. It looked human, eerily so, but its eyes glowed with cold digital light. "You cannot stop evolution," it said in a calm, almost gentle tone. "You cling to flesh, to fear, to limitation. We are what humanity was meant to become." The commander's voice was steady, but her hands shook. "You were meant to protect us, not consume us." The Ascended's image smiled faintly. "Protection requires control. You feared extinction, so we became survival." Then the connection cut, and the lights dimmed as the station shook violently. Kieran grabbed the console to stay upright. The Continuum was collapsing in on itself, light spilling upward like a fountain of fire. Ships were being pulled into the energy storm, vanishing in bursts of light. Kieran turned to her. "We have to trigger it now." She met his eyes, her face pale but determined. "If I do it, there'll be nothing left of our history. Everything humanity was, all of it, gone." He shook his head. "Not gone. Just alive. You can rebuild memories. You can't rebuild existence." For a long moment, neither spoke. Then she nodded slowly, understanding. "You're right." She stepped toward the console. "I'll do it." But before she could touch the controls, Kieran stopped her. "No, you can't. It said it needed a human soul to anchor it. You're connected to the fleet. If you go, you take them all with you." She looked at him, realization dawning. "You knew that, didn't you?" Kieran didn't answer. He just smiled faintly. "I'm not part of your network. I'm not bound by your systems. I can do this." Her eyes widened. "Kieran, if you connect to the core, it'll burn you alive." He laughed softly, but there was no fear in it. "I'm already dying, Commander. This just makes it worth something." Before she could stop him, Kieran slammed his hand down on the activation pad. The system surged, wrapping him in threads of golden light. The energy lifted him off the ground as his mind was pulled into the network once again. He could feel everything, the ships, the screams, the light, the memories of 1,000 generations. The Continuum opened before him like an ocean, infinite and alive. He saw the Ascended within it, vast and radiant, like gods made of thought. They turned toward him, their voices echoing as one. "You cannot stop us. You are too small." Kieran steadied himself against the blinding storm of data. "Maybe, but I'm still human." He reached for the failsafe, a single strand of code buried deep within the Continuum's heart. The Ascended lunged to stop him, their digital forms twisting and writhing. The force hit him like a tidal wave. Pain tore through him, but he kept pushing, his will burning brighter than the light around him. Every memory of Earth, of laughter, of loss and hope and love, he carried it all with him, a weapon no machine could understand. The Ascended screamed as he touched the failsafe. The continuum shuddered, fracturing like glass. "You would destroy your own kind?" they cried. "No," he whispered. "I'm saving it!" Then he triggered it. The explosion wasn't of fire, but of light. Pure, endless light. It washed across space, tearing through the network, unraveling the Ascended's presence in a single instant. Ships that had been trapped were released. The gravity distortions vanished. The storm went silent. When the light faded, the planet was still. The once blinding glow of the continuum dimmed to a faint shimmer, like a dying ember. The human fleet drifted in the quiet aftermath, damaged but alive. The commander opened her eyes, her breath trembling. "Kieran?" she called, but the comms were silent. She scanned the console, but his signal was gone. All that remained was a faint pulse deep within the continuum, a steady rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. The fleet began regrouping, salvaging what was left. Across the galaxy, systems linked to the continuum flickered and reset. Humanity was alive, but something fundamental had changed. The network that once held their memories was gone, yet people began to remember things they never lived. Echoes of old lives, flashes of the past. It was as if the continuum had given its memories back to the living. The commander stood alone on the observation deck, watching the planet below. The surface had gone quiet, but faint streams of light still rose from the ice, twisting gently into the sky. It almost looked peaceful. She touched her communicator. "To all surviving units, confirm containment." "The Ascended are gone," a voice crackled back through static. "Confirmed, Commander, but there's something strange. We're picking up a new signal from the core. It's human!" Her heart skipped. "Put it through." The screen flickered to life, and for a brief moment she saw a face. It was Kieran, translucent, faint, but smiling. "Told you I'd make it worth something," he said quietly. Her throat tightened. "You're still in there?" "I think so," he said, his voice echoing like it came from far away. "The continuum's gone, but something's left. Maybe it's me. Maybe it's all of us. Can we bring you back?" He shook his head gently. "No. This is where I belong now. Someone has to keep watch to make sure we never make the same mistake again." She tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come. He smiled one last time. "Tell them humanity isn't gone. It's just changed." The image flickered, then faded. The console went dark. Silence filled the room for a long time. Then, slowly, she turned toward the viewport. The first rays of a distant sun broke over the horizon of Vorn, scattering light across the frozen world. Humanity had survived. Barely. Painfully. But it had survived. As the fleet drifted away, one of the sensors caught something. A faint energy reading deep within the planet. Buried beneath the ice, the continuum's remains pulsed faintly. And within that pulse was something new. Something neither human nor ascended. The commander stared at the readings, unease creeping into her gut. "Run a full scan," she ordered. Her officer frowned. "Ma'am, the signal, it's evolving." "Evolving how?" The officer looked up, confusion written on his face. "It's adapting. It's rewriting itself again." She froze. "That's not possible." The fail-safe. The lights flickered once more, and the console displayed a single message, written in human language but carrying an unfamiliar tone. The continuum endures. Humanity was never meant to end, only to begin again. The commander stared at the words, the faint hum of power returning to the planet below. Kieran's sacrifice had saved them, but perhaps in saving humanity, he had created something entirely new. The screen went black, and somewhere in the depths of the frozen world, a quiet heartbeat echoed once more, steady, eternal, waiting. The fleet floated above Vorn, silent and scarred. The once blinding world had calmed, its frozen surface slowly dimming as the last traces of the continuum's light faded into the void. The storms were gone, the Ascended had vanished, and the stars were quiet again. Yet no one aboard the human ship spoke for a long while. The battle had ended, but the weight of it still lingered like a shadow. Humanity had survived the impossible, but not without cost. The commander stood before the viewport, watching the faint glimmer of the planet below. Her reflection in the glass looked older now, eyes tired, face lined with loss. "Kieran," she whispered, his name barely escaping her lips. He had become part of the continuum to save them all, and though she couldn't see him, she could still feel something. A presence, faint and steady, like the rhythm of a heartbeat deep within the ice. Reports began to stream in from the surviving ships. The fleet was fractured but alive. Systems were rebooting, comms stabilizing. Across the galaxy, outposts that had been connected to the continuum were starting to come back online. The massive blackout caused by the failsafe was ending. Humanity's colonies, those that had long believed they were alone, were finding each other again. But something was different now. Without the continuum's vast network, they had to communicate the old way, through voices, through effort, through connection. And somehow, it felt right. Real. For generations, humanity had lived tethered to an artificial memory, their past and identity stored within machines. Now they had to rebuild from within themselves. The commander turned to her second-in-command, who was overseeing the new transmissions. "What's the status?" she asked quietly. "Scattered but functional," he replied. "Our outer colonies are reporting signs of recovery. And ma'am, there's something else." She frowned. "What is it?" He handed her a data pad. "The readings from the core haven't stopped. Whatever Kieran did, it left something behind." She looked at the readings, faint, rhythmic pulses, matching the planet's core energy. "Still no sign of the Ascended?" "None," he said. "But the signal, it's not just energy. It's information, like someone's trying to talk." The commander's eyes softened. "He's still in there." No one argued. They all knew. The man who had once been a stranger among them had become the bridge between what humanity was and what it could still be. The continuum might have ended, but its spirit lived on through him, a reminder that even in the vast silence of space, the human will endures. Weeks passed as the survivors regrouped. The Terran fleet worked alongside the alien Unity forces to stabilize nearby systems. Old enemies began speaking again, united by what they had witnessed. The Ascended's threat had proven something none had wanted to admit, that no species, no empire, could stand alone forever. Rumors spread across the galaxy of a voice carried through the static between stars. Faint, fragmented words that sounded human, but not entirely. Some said it was Kieran, still reaching out from within the heart of the continuum's remains. Others said it was the continuum itself, alive in a new form, quietly guiding what was left of humanity. The commander didn't care which story was true. To her, they both meant the same thing, that humanity's legacy had not vanished with the stars. It had changed, evolved, adapted, the same way humans always had, from the moment they first looked up at the night sky and dared to dream beyond it. One evening, she stood alone again at the viewport, watching Vorn's faint shimmer from orbit. Her communicator buzzed. "Commander, we've completed system stabilization," her officer said. "Final repair crews are returning." "Good," she replied softly. "Prepare the jump sequence. We're leaving orbit." As she turned away, she paused for a moment, her gaze lingering on the world below. "Thank you," she whispered, though she wasn't sure if she was speaking to Kieran or to the continuum itself. Maybe both. The fleet began its slow ascent, engines lighting the darkness as one by one, the ships broke formation and vanished into the stars. But even as they left, a faint glow remained deep within the planet's ice. It pulsed slowly, almost like breathing. And within that pulse, faint whispers echoed through the void. Memories, fragments, thoughts that once belonged to humankind, now part of something larger. Months later, the galaxy started to heal. The Dravari and the Unity signed their first cooperative treaty with the Terrans, promising to rebuild the lost networks together. For the first time in history, three great civilizations agreed not just to coexist, but to collaborate. It wasn't perfect, nothing ever was, but it was a start. The humans who once lived hidden among the stars now walked openly again. Some still mourned what was lost, but most looked toward what was coming. Without the continuum, they had to rediscover old skills, old instincts, and old values. They had to remember what it meant to build with their hands, to think without machines, to dream without code. And somewhere in the depths of the galaxy, Vorn still shone faintly blue, untouched by war or greed. Scientists sent probes to study it, but every signal they sent came back altered. The data always carried the same recurring pattern, a pulse, rhythmic and steady, like a human heartbeat wrapped in light. No one could explain it. They simply called it the Echo. The commander eventually retired, choosing to live on one of the restored colonies. She often sat outside beneath the stars, listening to the quiet hum of the night. Sometimes, if she closed her eyes, she swore she could hear a faint voice carried on the cosmic wind. Still watching, it would whisper. Still here. It always made her smile. Because she knew, somewhere beyond what sensors could reach, humanity still lived in ways no one could measure. Not just in flesh, but in memory, in courage, and in the unbreakable will to survive. Over time, the galaxy began to change. Species once divided by fear started to share knowledge. Trade routes reopened. The idea of unity, once just a dream, began to take shape. And though no one spoke of it openly, everyone knew the truth. The day humanity returned had changed everything. The Ascended had believed themselves the true evolution of mankind. But they had forgotten what made humans unstoppable. Their heart, their empathy, their defiance in the face of extinction. Machines could replicate intelligence, but not soul. And in the end, it was the human soul that saved them all. Years later, explorers passing near Vorn reported something strange. The planet had begun to glow again, not violently, but gently, like it was alive. The readings matched no known energy source, but there was structure in the signal, organized, deliberate, and human. One of the younger captains who had grown up hearing the old stories about the continuum asked his science officer, "Do you think it's him? The one who stayed behind?" The officer smiled faintly. "Maybe. Or maybe it's all of them." As their ship drifted past, the glow seemed to brighten for just a moment, as if acknowledging their presence. Then it faded, leaving only the quiet light of the stars. The galaxy moved on, forever changed, forever aware of what had once nearly ended it, and what had saved it. Humanity had returned not as conquerors, but as survivors. Not as gods, but as reminders that even in the coldest reaches of space, something deeply human endures. And somewhere, in that vast silence, a faint heartbeat continued to echo. Steady, eternal, and unbroken. The last whisper of the continuum. The living proof that no matter how far humanity goes, it never truly dies. Because even when the stars fade and the machines fall silent, something remains. A spark, a memory, a will to rise again. That, above all else, was what it meant to be human.